Hey guys, welcome back. So today I was thinking about, so Jeff's in the living room, right? And he was having a meeting with some of his coworkers, Zoom meeting. And I was reminded, I had some bad memories. These are just more bad memories and flashbacks. But I was thinking about the industry that I used to work in and how shallow everyone was and how dishonest everyone was, and just like how people are in general. And I was remembering this one specific instance where I had so I had my like full-blown manic episode when when I was working in media, and I basically had this meltdown at work, would show up in the morning at my job and then disappear after a half an hour and then never come back, and then go in the next day and think that I was actually going to work and doing my job when I was really just showing up and leaving. But I would show up like talking accelerated and saying weird things to people and my coworkers. And so somehow Jeff brought me paperwork to get put out on Family Leave Medical Act. And somehow a friend of mine got me to the hospital. But I've talked about this on my channel before, but the episode was fully traumatic, and it lasted, I think, like six months. This one was shorter because they got me into the hospital fairly quickly. But oh God, I've never told you guys this story. It was so horrible. Like, so the building that I worked in, I also worked out at a gym. They had a gym in the building. And one day I went in the gym and just like took a shower, but took a shower with my jeans on. And it was because I thought that there were cameras in the drains. Yeah, crazy stuff like that. And I actually had to go and like get approval from my job. Sebastian. My dog's ripping up his bed. So I actually had to get approval from my job to go. It was this weird thing, like the gym had to have the okay from my job that I was back at work before they would let me work out there again. Okay. He was like trying to make his bed where he just sits there and digs. So anyway, so when I went back to work, I was extremely depressed. And I think unless you're someone who has dealt with severe depression or clinical depression, or coming back from a severe manic episode, you really have zero idea what it feels like. Simple tasks like getting out of bed and finding something to wear is almost impossible. And I don't honestly even know how I got up and went to work after that, but when I eventually went back to work, God, it was so humiliating. I remember sitting there in human resources, and the only reason I was able to go back to work was because they were afraid that they couldn't fire me because I had a medical issue, and there's this whole like legal thing, but it was a pretty like high profile job in terms of what I was doing and who I was dealing with. And so I knew right off the bat that they were never going to trust me again after seeing me in that state and seeing me break down. But I remember being in human resources, like going back to work, and I remember them saying, well, we just need to make sure that you're on your medication and you're handling it. And at the time, I didn't understand my illness at all, and I didn't know that my behavior wasn't my fault. So I remember just crying and being like, I'm so sorry. And it was so humiliating and this was like it was a human resource director and like the VP of the company that had to meet with me before I could like start my job again. And I worked with some really shallow people, and I was just thinking about how fake all these people were that I worked with and how shallow they were. And I was thinking about this one particular instance, and it's because Jeff was doing his meeting in the living room. I don't know if I mentioned the connection there, but I was listening to him in his meeting, and I was just reminded me of, you know, my old job. And I would sit in these meetings with the networks, and like I was thinking about how, yes, I was miserable there, and yes, I didn't want to be there, and it was such a challenge for me to be there, but they really like found anything and everything that I did, because we would sit in meetings, and then they told me like one time, oh, well, you never ask meetings in question, or you never ask questions in the meetings, because what would happen was all the TV networks would come in and say on an individual basis, like AMC would come in and say, well, here are the shows we have lined up and blah, blah, blah. No one ever had any questions. No one. But for some reason they singled me out. But that said, I couldn't do my job to the best of my ability. I couldn't do my job. Like, I was so severely depressed. I was literally contemplating suicide every day. And I heard people talk about passive suicidal thoughts. I don't know if this is what it was. I know I didn't actually want to die. I know I didn't want to give up, but I came very close to you know, like I was making plans to kill myself. But the whole thing, the thing that really bothered me that I was thinking about today was that like I went into my industry a little bit older than everyone else. So I worked with people that were like 5 or 6 years younger than me, which isn't, no, like more like 10 years younger than me towards the end of my career. And I remember my boss gave me a buy to do, and I had negotiated with the network, but she had offered me some kind of sponsorship, and it wasn't the exact sponsorship that the client wanted. So I told her no to this other alternative when I shouldn't have. It's really dumb idea. But my coworker was such a bitch so my boss like essentially handed my project off to her and said, okay, well, you know, why don't you just give her this to finish it. And so I remember she's sitting there on the phone, and she's talking to the girl at a different network, and the girl on the other network is like, let's just call her Sam. That's not really her name, but anyways, Sam is talking to this girl at the network, and the girl at the network is totally throwing me under the bus, and Sam has her on speakerphone, and like there's no reason why, like we were in cubes and we were like 3 cubes apart, and she was just doing it to totally like be a bitch. Like if someone's sitting there talking shit about you, like, and so like the girl kept saying like, oh, well, Stephanie didn't want this sponsorship, and but Sam's like, well, we have to have it now, and I'm sorry she told you that, but she just kept going back and forth, and she, well, Stephanie didn't want us to do da 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 da, and blah blah blah. And so yeah, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about how rude that was, and I was thinking about how none of the people that I worked with had any idea what I was going through. They had to have known I was down because of my attitude, but because, you know, I was severely depressed, but they really had no clue. And I don't think that unless you've been suicidal, unless you've been to that point where you're because it's physically an ailment, like you physically cannot get up to do certain things. Like on the weekends, I physically I didn't cook anything. I had to go buy my food because I just couldn't bring myself to go to the grocery store. I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the energy to be around people. I didn't have the energy to put my clothes on to figure out something to wear in the morning. It was horrible. And on the other hand, I'm working with all these fake ass people who are just total jerks. But yeah, that's what I was thinking about today. And I'm super bummed because I haven't been able to do a lot of music or recording lately. And then they're saying this thing is going to last for like the next 3 months, and it's annoying. But anyways, yeah, it's like 10 o'clock at night. Once again, I was supposed to do this earlier in the day and I didn't, and now it's late. So, anyways, that's all I got for today. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye.